Hey fellow babies, welcome back to this week's Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We are hopeful you are Patreon patrons. Shane can use the support. If you're not and you're watching on YouTube, that's cool. The only thing I ask from you is follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Really, I need followers. Let's move on. I got a lot of scotch to talk about, so I want to get through this week's episode. Our first question from YouTube, from Nintendo Amigo. Pachter, Nintendo, we're on last name basis, Amigo. Do you see Switch losing sales and third-party support later on, just like we saw for the Wii? Yes. I think third parties don't believe that Nintendo is good with third-party titles. I think that third parties view Nintendo consoles as being Nintendo-focused. And I don't think this is really a knock on Nintendo. I think third parties believe that the people who buy Nintendo consoles are primarily interested in Nintendo content. And so they don't tend to do as well. So it's not Nintendo being a bad guy. It's the Nintendo fanboys buying Nintendo content first, which I think is legit. The other problem is Switch came pretty late in the cycle. You know, PlayStation and Xbox came out in 2013. Switch came out in 2017. So the large majority of people buying Switch already have a PS4 and Xbox One. So really, if you want to buy Madden, you can buy it on the PlayStation 4. It doesn't matter. You want to buy Call of Duty? Buy it on your Xbox One. It doesn't matter. You don't need it on the Switch. So I don't think the publishers view making that game for the Switch as an incremental sale. I think they view that as a substitute that they would already have been able to sell it to the person on a PS4 and Xbox One. So yes, I think you will see them losing sales and third-party support later on. I think the early support has been games that were ported over from Xbox 360. So FIFA, NBA, NBA 2K, Elder Scrolls, those are all Xbox 360 games. The other stuff is all of the independent type titles like Stardew Valley, Golf Story. Those I think you get a lot of third-party support, a lot of smaller games. But no, I don't think you're going to get major AAA third-party titles on the Switch. They're just going to make them for PS4 and Xbox One and assume that people have both consoles. Good question. Our next question from Patreon, from Carl Kuras. Hey Carl, double K. I hope your middle initial is not K. That would be unfortunate. You've often talked about a console-less future. Would that eliminate the licensing fees game makers currently pay to console manufacturers? If so, how do you think this will impact the publishing costs of games? Will we see a repeat of the shovelware that flooded the Atari 2600, boy you're old, or will there still be some kind of a gatekeeper? Yes, obviously, if a game is not on a console, there is no royalty. So a PC game doesn't have a royalty. Nobody pays Microsoft or Sony a royalty for putting a game on the PC. The console-less games will be made just like a PC game. But don't think of this as only console games or only not console games. Think of this just the way you think of a console game with a version on the PC. So the PC version is going to be the one that you're going to be able to download to your phone or your tablet or your PC and play on your television, and that won't bear a royalty. So right now, PC games are more profitable than console games because of the lack of the royalty. They tend to be priced less. That doesn't impact the publishing cost. That impacts revenue. The cost is still going to be the development cost, and the manufacturer's royalty gets passed through, but in the form of a higher price, a $60 game versus $50. So yes, I think it impacts. I think you're going to get a blend, and Sony and Microsoft are going to keep trying to win the business of the consumer and make the consoles do more and more and more like virtual reality. And so we'll still have consoles. I just think you open up the market to a lot of people who don't have a console, which means the publishers can make more money by selling more copies of the game. Our next question from YouTube, from Bark Scruffalo. That's a great name. Is Bethesda's current business model sustainable? It makes mostly single-player games, and a lot of them seem to be discounted very soon after launch. Are they a public company? Do they have shareholders to answer to? Somebody owns Bethesda, obviously. It's primarily the founders and employees, and Provident Equity owns a big slug, but employees and founders own most of it. Provident Equity, about 25%. Founders and employees, including the CEO, Robert Altman, own about 75%. And look, they're a profitable company. So single player works. There's demand for single player. There's a question whether single player can support microtransactions, and it tends not to. It tends to support DLC. So Bethesda games tend not to monetize like FIFA Ultimate Team, where you have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of recurring revenue. But, you know, yeah, it's sustainable. I mean, I think that a lot of people, I mean, I would say half of all gamers love single player games. And, you know, people who play multiplayer like multiplayer, and I think that there's room for both. That's like saying, can we have TV and movies? You know, can they both coexist? Yes, we like them both. And, you know, different styles for different people. Some people watch more TV, some people watch more movies. That's it for this week's Pachter Factor. If you're watching on SIFTD, thank you so much for your patronage. If you're watching on YouTube, it's at MICHAELPACHTER on Twitter. You have to follow me. You have no excuse. I will see you guys next week. I'll be wearing a different shirt because we're done taping this one. We've exceeded our card. We've used up all the storage we have. I can't talk anymore. Bye. Let's move on to this week's whiskey lesson. There's something about whiskeys that they just get better with age. So I just want to show you a handful. These are high-end whiskeys. They're not crazy expensive, but they're $100 or more. 21 years. That's when they start to get great. This is actually a reasonably priced 21-year-old clear bottle. Look how dark that one is. That sometimes they color them, but this thing is finished in sherry casks, 21 years. Sherry makes it that color. It's sweet. It's beautiful. I love it. This one, Linkwood, 21 as well. Linkwood is the feedstock for Johnnie Walker Blue. So if you ever drink Johnnie Walker Blue, it's Linkwood. This is 21. Blue is 25 years old. So if they had waited 4 more years, this would have been available. I'm sure I didn't pay more than $100 for this. This is really quite good too. 53.6% alcohol. North British is an old distillery. Notice it's single grain, not single malt. This is not made from barley. This is made from corn. 25 years old. I am absolutely certain this was under $100 because some Scotch aficionados don't like grain as much as they like malt. I love this stuff. I highly recommend you try to find this. Getting even older, also single grain, 28 years. I think this was about $100. If you get a chance to drink a 28-year-old whiskey, do it. They're freaking awesome. And again, I've got all these. You notice over these last few weeks, I got a lot of whiskey I haven't had. But I saved the best for last. This is Bruichladdich, the Black Art. And I'm not sure if it's on the bottle. I think it is. Yep. Yeah. This is the Black Art. It's 23 years old, and it was bottled in, or distilled in and put in a barrel in 1992. I'm sure bottled in 2015. Oh, 24 years. Sorry, it says there 24 years. And it says on here that effectively we can't tell you how we make it, or we'll have to kill you. The reason I have this bottle, and this is $400, is I went to an event at E3 hosted by the ESA. The CEO of the ESA is Mike Gallagher, and he brought me back in a back room. We could have whatever scotch we wanted, and they had that stuff. And I told him it was the best scotch I'd ever tasted in my life, and he sent me a bottle. What a cool dude. I'm taking that to E3, and I'm opening it for him because I want him to share in that bottle. I'm going to share it among the people who go to my E3 party, which is really quite an event. This stuff is freaking awesome. It's a little too expensive for me to recommend to any of you. Best scotch I've ever had.